very excited to have this guest that I have the honor to sit next to and be able to spend some time with someone who I got an opportunity to go on his podcast 2 years ago in 2022. We had a little Wi-Fi situation, but we got through it. And I'm going to read a little bit of intro, but he don't need an intro really. I think we all know who this gentleman is. But today we have an ex-monk, which we would talk about, turned life guru. He's the #1 New York Times bestselling author, award-winning podcast host of On Purpose, chief purpose officer of Calm, and purpose-driven entrepreneur. Everybody, please welcome to the Y, the incredible. He's a legend in our household, Jay Shetty.
Oh, thank you, man. Such an honor to be here. I'm so grateful to be here. And that's such a sweet, kind introduction. And it means the world to me, honestly. I could feel it in your voice and I received that. And I can honestly say, you're a legend in our household.
I like that.
And your wife too. And I think it was amazing when you came on the show, despite the Wi-Fi difficulties, the way you came through and the way you connected was so powerful. So thank you for having me.
No, of course. I just said that you're a legend in this space. Like I'm in people's households. Does that feel weird? Does that sound weird? Does it get old? Like, do you understand why? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a legend in people's households that I've never been into.
I mean, I should ask you that question. You should be the one answering that question. I feel like I'm just trying to be a spiritual friend to everyone in my community. Like, that's my goal. My goal is to be someone in your network, in your world, that gives you little reminders, little nudges, pushes you in the right direction, but does it in a friendly, loving, kind, compassionate way, because I feel we're all so good at being harsh with ourselves. We're all so good at being pressurizing with ourselves, but we're not good at being kind and graceful with ourselves. And I feel like if you have a friend who's that way with you, maybe you'll learn to be that way with yourself. So to me, all I ever aim and aspire to be is everyone's spiritual friend. And if I can be that, then I'm very satisfied,
I speak about that a lot, right? You're at this point in life where, one, you only want to be associated with people that are willing to give you grace, right? Like just for me in life, as I grow older, I'm like, man, I only want to be around people that understand that, it's no perfection here, that is imperfection here, and I need grace just like I'm willing to give grace. And, so I talk about that a lot, man. That's like a message that me and my guys, that we always, making sure that we keep, top of mind is grace and giving grace, and, hoping to receive it, from the ones that you want to receive it from. And so it's really important. How do you, and I might be asking questions that I want people to ask me, but when you go around the world, everyone is pretty much taken from you. And I'm not saying that they don't pour into you because of their ask of what you do and they love of what you do. But everyone is coming to you for a question or to get an answer. How do you pour into so many people's cup randomly, just everywhere you go?
Yeah, I think going back to your first question, it connects to this one. The real legends are my teachers and my guides, my mentors, the monks that I've spent time with, the people that I get poured into from. And I feel like you can only keep giving and keep growing if people keep giving and growing you. And so I think you've always got to remember to be a student. You've always got to remember to go back to the basics. You've always got to remember to go back to the beginning. And I think for me, I'm constantly trying to absorb that energy from my mentors and teachers and guides so that I can channel that. And I think the mistake comes when you feel like you're pouring from yourself. I think if it just becomes about you, we're limited. We're fallible. I'm limited. I'm fallible. I'm imperfect. But when I'm gaining from so many different oceans, then I can too be a river. And I think for a lot of us, we're trying to be the ocean and then you just dry up because you're going to run out. There's only so many people you can be that way for. And so I have my days. I have days when I'm feeling dry and I have days when I'm feeling weak. And I feel those are the days when I have to go deeper within myself. I've got to reconnect with the source and then be able to push that back out there. And so I always remind myself when I meet someone, though, that I'm really grateful for the kinds of things people say. You just introduced me to a couple of members of your family and your team here.
Yeah.
And I can't not stop, pause, and be grateful to hear those words and try and share that love back, because someone chose, and this was my intention when I started. When I started creating what I do today, I never believed in a million years that someone would choose to watch it over a TV show or over something else, but they do. Yeah. And so I want to honor that soul and be like, you're amazing for making this choice and decision that you chose to watch something that was built to elevate you, even if it wasn't a fun entertainment or fun escape. Mm-hmm. And so to me, when I hear that, I allow myself to receive it. I think there was a moment in my career early on where I'd be like, oh no.
Shy away from it a little bit.
Yeah, you shy away from it. You be a bit modest. You're like, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, it's cool. Thank you. And then you realize actually someone's sharing love with you. Yeah. And the way you keep being able to give love is if you allow yourself to receive it. Yeah. And so for me, to stopping, being present, pausing and taking it in allows me to give it back and share it with others.
Yeah, I think you just said something so important. And it's something that I've had to, to come to grips with, in a sense, is when people do say the things they say to you and they do approach you, whether it's, it's something that you've changed their life, you changed the way they think, and you helped someone in their family, it's one of their loved ones. However you've done it, it's really this word humble and being humble. Sometimes you can be a little too humble. It's like, no, actually take your flowers. You know what I mean? Don't be so bashful away from trying to be too humble and actually take your flowers, but also understand what it is that you bring to this world.
Yes.
And the impact that you have on this world, because, if you understand it and you know it, then it's easier for you to go and do it, right?
Absolutely.
And also to receive it, right? Which is hard for us to receive that kind of, acknowledgement about, something. And so I think it's very important to do that. I wonder, someone, in your space, very similar to me, is I've had coaches pretty much my entire life, right? I've had people who held me accountable. I have teammates that held me accountable. And as hard as it is to play with others and win with others and follow other people's rules, it's also easy too, because you have people motivating you, pushing you, and people you don't want to let down. Who are those people outside of your family? Who are the people that you need to pour into you and that you reach to and say, hey, I'm depleted. I need something. I need you. Who are those people for you?
The number one answer is definitely my monk teachers. I was literally with one of my monk teachers on Saturday.
So
I'm fully connected to them, because I feel like they're the ones who keep me grounded, because for them, it's almost like the world I'm in now is so disconnected and distant, and they don't value it in the same way. They value what you're saying. Like, they value someone who's rooted and grounded and connected. And so you need someone outside of your world to keep pulling you back to that place. And so I find that they keep me in check. They're honest with me. They're able to notice things inside of me even before I notice them. And then my job is only to be transparent and open enough to receive it from them. Yeah. And as long as I do that that's hard sometimes. That's the hard part, right? That's the hard part sometimes, right? Like, it's so easy to get carried away. Yeah. And I find that for me, when I'm with my teachers and my mentors, because they've been there for my whole life, like yours, you also have like decades of a relationship there. There's like a real brotherhood. And so you know that this person is only saying it for your own good. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been a really important part for me with mentors, is I'm surrounded by people who I believe are saying things to me because they want me to be better, and they're not doing it to bring me down or hold me back. Mm-hmm. They're not doing it because they're envious, scared, fearful, insecure. They're doing it because they see potential in me that I don't see in myself. And so for me, my monk teachers are definitely a big part of it. I'd say my wife, I mean, you said no family, but I think, apart from my parents, but my wife is a big person who I turn to for advice. I feel like she's so honest with me. I don't know if you have the same experience.
Yeah, well, it could be a little too honest. You'd be like, hold on, I don't want you to be that honest.
Yeah, tell me. I agree with that. There are days when I'm like, you didn't have to tell me that right now. Like, this was a sensitive time. But I know that she's always going to be honest with me, and that's huge. So I turn to her for sure. And then I'm always searching. I think one of the reasons why I love doing the podcast is because I get to sit down from people and get free advice from the greats. Like I said, like you've been on the show, it's an opportunity for me to mine from anyone and everyone and apply. You've had a completely different life experience than I have, completely different background, completely different walks of life. But I know that there are things you've taught me and things that I've learned from you that I can apply in my life. Yeah. And I think that is the joy of this platform. That is the joy of having conversations with. One of my mentors would always say, you need to have more open random, and supportive relationships. He said that as you age, you become more closed, selective, and controlling. And he said, as you become more closed, selective, and controlling, you actually lose your edge. But he said, what made you who you were in the first place is that you were open, random, and supportive.
Yeah.
And so I feel having random conversations with people you never talk to, you never meet, you never bump into on the street, like those are the kind of conversations that we need more.
Do you feel that every conversation that you enter, that someone that they need a word from you? Like, do you feel like every conversation you have to be on?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there was a time in my life where I felt like if I didn't say something profound,
right,
people would walk out the room. Like I was like, I felt that pressure. And what I found is if you have the pressure to say something profound, you rarely will say something profound because all you're doing is being paralyzed by the pressure.
Right.
And so that stress, definitely, I had that for a while. And I think as you get more comfortable with yourself and as you get more comfortable in your space, you start to realize all you can do is be present. And so now instead of pressurizing myself to say something profound, I'm like, just be here, just be present, just actually listen. And then maybe you'll say something that helps someone, and maybe you'll say something that everyone laughs at. And the truth is, it doesn't matter because that's all you had to give anyway.
Right.
And so I think now I would consider myself to be more comfortable in that discomfort and that uncertainty. But I think in the beginning, definitely, I felt like a lot of pressure. But now I'm just like, I want to be around people that I can just be around. And, I like a lot of normal things too. So I think people get surprised when I say like, I like playing NBA 2K or I like playing FIFA.
Why you think that? Like, they don't look at you as a normal person?
Yeah, because people just, I think we live in a world like probably similar to you. Like you get boxed.
Yeah, you get boxed.
Right?
Yeah.
So like you're an athlete, you're a basketball player. That means you can't have interest in whatever. I don't know what, you can tell me what you get judged about. But for me, it's like, oh, you used to be a monk, even though now I'm married and we have businesses and we have ventures and we have purpose-driven, ideas and ideation. You get boxed and like, oh, this used to be your life. So then you can't have normal interests. And I'm like, no, I love NBA 2K. I love FIFA. I love sport. It's a massive part of my life. I love movies. I'm massively into movies. I love movies and entertainment. So there's so many normal things. And so now I've realized that I want more relationships where I can flip between playful and profound.
Yeah.
So I want to switch with people. I want to be able to talk about the latest game, and then I want to talk about a verse from a scripture that someone hasn't read. And I enjoyed those relationships because that to me is genuine and authentic and true to who I am, as opposed to just having to play one side of me. So I try and avoid relationships where I feel people can't accept and access all parts of myself. Yeah. And so for those who listen to my podcast or whatever, they know I'm addicted to all this other stuff. And it's good. Like, I'm glad. Yeah.
Right. I'm glad you said that. Yeah. I was thinking of like monks, right? I grew up in the inner city of Chicago. And so you hear about certain people, places and things, you may never see them or never experience them. I don't know if you feel this way, but I kind of feel this way. You've given monks a face. You've humanized what most people don't know, even know of, besides what people say of what a monk is and what they do, and so I feel like you kind of have birthed a face to it in society that we're all watching and we're in. I'm not saying everyone who really knows in the community, but the community who do not know. Do you feel that? Have you felt the pressure of that, of being the face of a monk?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think I really struggle with it when I went through my transition, because it's almost like you had an identity for 3 years, right? I was a monk for 3 years of my life, dedicated service and practice. And then all of a sudden you have to transition. And now the rules of the games have changed in that you're in the real world and different things matter. And
now, is those 3 years is that the 3 years you did your time and then you move on?
No. So, some people do it for their whole lives.
Okay.
And some people do it for different periods of time. So I did it for 3 years, not as a commitment. I thought I was going to do it for the rest of my life, but I only made it 3 years. Okay. I guess there are some people like that in the NBA who thought they were going to be professional basketball, have an amazing career like you, or they didn't make it, right?
Yeah,
and so some of my monk mentors have been monks for 30, 40 years. And so they've done it for decades.
Yeah.
And then there are people like myself who've done it for a short period of time in a deep way, but then moved on. And so for me, it's definitely pressure because, like I said, like so much of my life has changed today. And it's also changed while I was teaching and sharing and guiding. And so it's complex because I think we like to think of life as like before and after, but actually life's cyclical and it's just constantly moving and changing. So I didn't know when I started this that it would get anywhere, let alone where it is today. And you're kind of living your own life. And then you're dealing with the perception change in your own mind. And then everyone else has their perception of you and they're going through that as well. And so I think it's really complex and it's quite layered and complicated and hard. And so I think for me, accepting that I was no longer a monk, but that I could still have certain mindsets that monks have was where I found my happy place. And that is still something I'm practicing today. So I'll give a practical example. So a big part of thinking like a monk, and that's why I wrote a book called Think Like a Monk, Not Live Like a Monk.
Got it right here for you. It's for you to sign later.
Yeah. Absolutely. The reason I wrote a book called Think Like a Monk, Not Live Like a Monk was because 99% of people are never going to live like a monk.
Right.
And even I today no longer live like a monk. But imagine you could learn to think like them. Imagine you could learn to access the peace, the purpose, the intention. So can everyone live like a monk? No. But can everyone think with intention? Yes. Can everyone live like a monk? No. But can everyone think with purpose? Yes. Can everyone live like a monk? No. Can everyone serve with the mindset of thinking about how to benefit and improve people's lives? Yes. And so that's what I wanted to share with people, was this idea. And so it's a daily battle for me. It's a daily challenge for me. It's never easy because I left 11 years ago and my life has changed so much, but I'm still trying to live by those ideals internally, even though my external life is different.
Do those ideals, do they evolve? Do they change? Do they grow? Or is it the pillars are the same and nothing changes? Like,
ooh, that's a great question. That's such a great, all of these are great questions, by the way. I've never been asked. What's brilliant about this is I've talked about this space in my life so much. I've never been asked these questions. These are great. Let me think. That's a really profound question.
Like you're saying, like 11 years removed, you're still trying to use the principles, of a monk and everything you learned.
Yes.
And so I guess I kind of say like, okay, 11 years removed, is it still the same principles?
Yeah.
Have these principles evolved? Have they changed? Have a new one came in? Or
So what I found is that there's no new principles. You just realize the same principle more deeply.
Okay.
So it's not that you're discovering a new idea. It's the same idea, but now you discovered a deeper layer of it.
Okay.
And I find that to be incredible because in one sense, when I lived as a monk, this was all theory. And then when you have to apply it in the real world, it becomes real life. It's like training versus the real game. Right? When you're in training, you can practice your free throw, your three-pointer, whatever it is. And then in the real game, all of a sudden, you've got two guys in front of you, you got whatever, right? So I think for me, what I learned in those 3 years was almost theory. And then when I came into the real world and I put it into practice, it worked. And I was like, wow, this is real. Like these powers are real. And so for me, I've gained more faith, more determination, more belief in what I learned in that time because I've seen it play out in the real world. And so I don't think I've learned new principles, but the principles have deepened and become more realized. And I think that was something we always talked about, which is applied wisdom is so much better than just academic wisdom. Like this idea of anyone can repeat a verse from scripture or quote something, but it's like when you actually have to live it in the real world with real pressures, that's when you test the idea.
We could tell people what to do all day.
Yeah, exactly.
When we have to do them.
And that's how I felt. That's how I felt in the last 11 years since I've left, that I actually had to live the principles and they worked.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, as you were saying that, I just went back to like before I got to the biggest stages and the work behind the scenes that I was told from my coaches that I needed to do. I didn't know that I needed to do these things, but I listened to my coaches, and the same time I rolled my eyes. I'm like, I don't need to do this. You don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah.
You kind of, the shades are closed, the doors are locked. No one's around, and you're working. but you don't know if it's really going to work until you have to now go put it into practice, right?
Absolutely.
And then that first moment when you put it into practice and you see that the work that you put in is actually works.
Yes.
Now you become a fiend to what else can I work on? What else can I actually put into play that works? So this feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well said, man. Well said. Yeah.
I wrote, so Think Like a Monk is an incredible book. And it was something you said in here, and I wanted to read it. It said, monks can withstand temptation, refrain from criticizing, deal with pain and anxiety, quiet the ego, and build lives that brim with purpose and meaning. First of all, I was like, ain't that what we all try? Shouldn't we all try to do that? Right? And so when I read that and the way that it was put, I never thought to myself, oh, I want to practice being a monk, or I want to be a monk. But I looked at that and I said, well, I want to be that.
Oh, I love that.
Right? Like those are the pillars in life. Like I'm trying to strive to be able to, like, how do you refrain from criticizing? You know how hard that is for people to refrain from criticizing?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought that was very telling. And I wanted to read that for people out there that may not understand, if no one has really not even just looked up anything they can find on social about a monk, but actually know someone or actually have practiced themselves, that they don't understand what the real meaning of these words are. Yeah. And this is true meaning. This is true power of yourself. I feel to be able to refrain from certain acts is one of the hardest things to do.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I really appreciate you sharing that. And the fact that your reaction was, "I want that." That was my hope, because I think, when you grow up in the world, you see the rich list being published. And then you've got people looking up to that going, oh, I want to be on that list one day. Mm-hmm. And so imagine if people had a character list where you go, oh, I want to be that one day, right? Like it's a totally different thing. And so I think when you think about if someone wanted to learn how to play basketball, if they came to learn from you, chances are that they're going to learn at a mastery level. And so the reason why we turn to monks is because all they care about is mastering those things you just read. Mm-hmm. That's why you turn to them, because that is their occupation. That's what they're dedicated to. And this isn't about my life. Like when I wrote the book, Think Like a Monk, it's not about my life. It's about the lives and the studies of monks from all different traditions. And so to me, the fact that for decades, they've just focused on mastering criticism, chances are you will be able to learn that from them. Yeah. So one of the practices we used to do, which I loved, was every time you wanted to criticize someone, you first had to think of 10 good things about them. And you had to rack your brain to write down 10 things you actually admire about them. And that was a practical challenge, but it was a good one. Yeah. And if you had to do that every time, all of a sudden you start going, oh, everyone's actually gray. Right? You have this idea that like, someone is just good or just bad. And then when you start doing that exercise, you start going, oh, like people are far more layered. People are far more complex. People are far more nuanced. And by the way, I only think they're bad because I'm looking at it from this angle, but maybe if I turned it around that way, then maybe they'd feel the same way about me. And so I think that was a huge principle. Another thing I loved every time we try and criticize someone was before you did that, you had to see where that hypocrisy or that characteristic existed within you. Mm. And so where is that? So if you're judging someone for judging someone, then you just realized you're judging someone too. And so where can you pause and go, well, wait a minute, where does that exist? Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist in them. And this is not about creating space for bad behavior. That's not the point of it. The point of it is to ask yourself so that you can also uproot it within yourself. Mm-hmm. Because chances are the reason you see it in someone so clearly is because you've seen it before. There's a familiarity you have with it, which is why it even triggers you in the first place. And that was the third step, which is like, if something about someone triggers you, ask yourself, why is that? Right. Does it remind you of a parent? Does it remind you of someone who treated you badly early on in your life? Does it remind you of an ex? Like, where is that coming from? Because
do you believe the things that they say?
Do you believe the thing? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so to me, just even that one tiny area can be such a rich, beautiful conversation. And, there's, I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt that has that quote that says, big minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people in the negative sense. And so I always say to people, you have two choices when you're talking about people. You're either talking in criticism and envy, or you're talking in understanding and study. And so if you're talking about people and you're talking about understanding and study, you're winning.
Right.
But if your conversation about people is criticism and envy, then you're creating a lose-lose for everyone.
Oh, with social media about to go down then. There's a lot of that.
Right?
Mr. Fly on the Wall.
This is such a great conversation. And you actually kind of stole my thunder
My bad.
about because you have this perception of what a monk is, or what you think a monk is growing up, from especially where we're from. So when I found out you were a monk, I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. Now, these years since you stopped practicing in the faith, but was practicing as a monk, in 11 years, does it get harder to keep that up for you? Because the further you are from doing it, you get deeper and deeper layers, but the world is still getting bigger or smaller, however you look at it.
Yeah.
Does it get harder?
Yeah, I think at one point, I think the honest answer is, of course it gets harder, but it also gets more powerful. And what I mean by that is, once you've practiced and trained, at one point you have to go out into the battlefield. And in the battlefield, you get wounded, but the wounds remind you of how much more you need to focus on the practices. So every time you go out, you get hit, you notice a flaw, you notice the ego still rising, you notice yourself being critical of someone else, you recognize you lost your self-awareness. Now all of that reminds you to take deeper shelter and practice more deeply. And so I think it's harder because you almost are exposed more and you notice your flaws and weaknesses more. Mm-hmm. But the point of noticing that more is to practice more. And as the same way in a game, right? Like to me, it's like, if you go into the game and someone just, wiped the floor with you, chances are if you're good at it, you're going to go back and go, all right, I need to work on this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it's the same mindset of, I feel today, I see my weaknesses more clearly, but that makes me want to work on myself more as opposed to feel weaker or give up. And so there's a pain in the fact that it gets harder, but there's a joy in the fact that I'm getting stronger and more self-aware and know what I need to work on. And I think we were always taught to relish the battle. That was the idea that I think sometimes in life we're looking for freedom from the battle, but that actually doesn't exist. That's like saying, was there ever a game where you went out there and it wasn't a fight?
Right.
I don't know. You can tell me.
Yeah, it was a game.
Yeah. Someone you wiped the floor with? So who was that? Go on.
Yeah, it was a couple teams that didn't have a fight.
Who are these teams?
But not games with meaning, with real meaning. Those was always the fight.
Yeah. Who are these teams with no meaning?
You can just go look. There's the teams at the bottom of the conferences.
Yeah. But you get the point I'm making. Like
I definitely do.
The idea of like the fight is going to be there.
Yeah.
And so all you can do is learn to relish the fight.
I like that.
You can't hope that the fight will end tomorrow. Like there's always going to be a battle within, there's going to be a battle without. And so if we live in this world of, I want to be in a place where there's no battle, you could be waiting forever, And I think that's the challenge, is waiting for the day for it to be over, not realizing that actually let's learn to relish it. Let's learn to find our strength in that.
Yeah. One thing I love, and I think I've discovered it some by doing these podcast interviews, and it's really the ones I've done that has not been athletes necessarily, is just the commonality that we all have and that we all share, and it's like you just said, it's very similar to an athlete. That's why even me as as someone who played, I had a mother the other day asked me to talk to her son because he wanted to play basketball and she wanted to be a lawyer. She had an idea. She's like, I want him to be a lawyer. I want him to focus on school. And, can you talk to him and tell him the importance of school? And so on one end, I'm sitting there like, okay, like the kid may feel like you don't believe in his dreams. Like, is he going to be an NBA player? I mean, the chances are very slim, right? Mm-hmm. We all know that. But I think I went in it that way. I said, well, what sport teaches you, Mom, is all the things that he's going to need in life. So let's not look at it like, oh, yes, he has a dream of making it to the NBA. All young kids, and they enjoy sports. They want to make it to the, play against the best. But let's talk about what sport teaches you and all the things that he's going to learn by playing this game of sport. When it comes to teamwork, when it comes to being able to communicate with people that are from different walks of life, don't speak the same language, and all these things, right? And I can just see after I got done speaking to her, because I didn't speak to him, I spoke to her about maybe a little bit of how your mindset when you're trying to talk to him about playing sports. How about you understand, or you push him to play sports to get the best out of the sport. And even if he isn't the best athlete, he's going to walk away with all the tools that he needs to be successful, in life.
That's great advice.
And so,
that's really great advice. How did she take it?
She took it good.
Yeah,
she gave me a hug at the end of the night.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And so
it resonated with her.
Yeah, it resonated with her, and it was, it was really like, let me talk to you and maybe give you a different way of thinking about it, because he's 13 years old. He might need this structure, right? He may need this in his life, and he's gravitating towards sport for some reason. And so see what that reason is. Yeah. Maybe you can use that reason in something else that he's going to gravitate to next. And so, it was a cool conversation.
I love that. That's great, man. That's great.
Yeah.
It's great advice.
Hardest question. I mean, not hardest question, easy question, I guess, but hard to do. How do you practice stillness? Like, you know how hard it is to be still, not just your body, your mind, your thoughts. How do you practice stillness?
I'd say one of my favorite practices is called the 5-4-3-2-1 method. And the reason I like this is because it makes stillness accessible and practical to everyone. So we learned it during our training, but you'll also learn it in therapy today. It's a practice that is quite accessible, and like I said, you don't have to learn something in order to practice it, which is why I like it. So wherever you are, all you have to do is look around and take note of 5 things you can see. And you want to look at them more closely than you would ordinarily. So you want to look at colors, shapes, shades, and try and really immerse in the 5 things you can see. This is beautiful if you do it outdoors in nature, but you can do it anywhere. And I always say to people that stillness to me is like a mental picture. So if you look at a picture, it's still. And we call them stills for a reason. And so this is how you take a mental picture, which means this is how you find mental stillness. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch. So feel the things around you, feel the textures, the temperatures. Notice the difference between my jacket and this chair, this microphone, this table, your own skin. 4 things you can touch. 3 things you can hear. I can hear some white noise, some chatter. I can hear my breath. I can hear you. 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And so if at any moment you're struggling to find stillness, focus on the 5 things you can see, the 4 things you can touch, the 3 things you can hear, the 2 things you can smell, and the 1 thing you can taste. And if you do that, you'll immediately access stillness, because stillness simply means I am here right now in mind, body, consciousness, spirit. And so it brings it all together. Stillness is not experienced when your mind feels ahead of your body. So sometimes you wake up in the morning and your mind is racing and your body's like, oh, I just want to stay in bed. And so you don't experience stillness. You're experiencing friction. So people think the opposite of stillness is movement. It's friction. It's like forces kind of battling against each other. Or you wake up in the morning and your mind is settled, but your body's active. Your body's like, gotta do this, gotta do that, gotta do that. And the mind's just like, oh, I'm just.
So is that being present? Like, is stillness being present?
I believe that that's the beginning point of stillness. Yeah, I think it's the beginning point. If you really ask me how to be still is to be rooted in clear intention and purpose. That's real stillness, right? Like, would we consider Martin Luther King still? We'd consider him extremely still because you couldn't move him from his purpose and his dedication and his determination. That's real stillness. We think of stillness as not moving your body and not moving your mind.
Not blinking.
Yeah. Real stillness is a tree. Like, that tree is rooted and grounded in growing, giving shade, giving fruits, giving love and shelter to birds and plants and all of this kind of stuff. That tree is still, but it's not still because it doesn't move. It's still because it's rooted in its purpose. And so to me, that's real stillness. Yeah. But that comes from starting off with presence.
What did your friends say when you came back with this stillness, with this like mindset? Like, were they clowning you? Like,
yeah, definitely. Well, I think I disconnected from a lot of friends. I stayed in touch with a lot of friends.
When you went off, you had to disconnect
there was a
from
bit
a lot
of both.
friends.
There was a bit of both. Like there were sometimes when you were completely disconnected, sometimes when you were a bit more connected. But there are certain friends that are still in my life since before and still to this day.
Yeah.
And definitely they clown me, for sure. For sure. Like, I think banter's a big thing in England. British banter is like roasting each other. We call it banter. And so in England, at least, the more you can roast someone, the closer you are to them. And I assume it could be similar. And it's very similar.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's what it's like in London, where I grew up. And so my friends would roast me hard. Like it was, oh gosh, it was the worst. But I think even when I first started doing all of this, like my friends would roast me, but I think that was a sign of love. It was a sign of closeness. And it was a sign of, we're always going to treat you the same. And I love that, because I think that's what real friendship is we're always going to treat you the same.
Yeah.
We're always going to be the same. And, don't think you're that enlightened. Like, see if you can tolerate this roast, and then we'll know whether you're that enlightened. So, yeah, they still do it now.
Well, yeah, they was challenging you on your practice.
Exactly. That's when you realize how not humble you are.
Right.
It's easy feeling humble when you're around the monks and everything, and then you're back with your friends and they don't care.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they definitely clown me.
So, I mean, obviously being a public figure, I don't know if that's what you set out to become, but you have become one of the biggest public figures in our world. And you hold obviously a space in something that is very important, because we live in a world where we all trying to find the way to something quick. Whether it's we're trying to find a way to our destination quick, or we're trying to find a way to lose weight fast, whatever it is, we're trying to get there. And so when it comes to our mental health, where you sit and helping us, in the space of learning meditation and learning stillness and learning all these things, we want that information, right? But I think in the midst of that, you kind of lose Jay. The public loses who you are, right? We see you as the guru, and so what do you and your homies do? Like, what do y'all like? Do you get a beer? Like, what do you do when you just Jay? When your hair ain't as nice as it is, when it's a little messed up a little bit? Like, what do y'all do? Like, how do y'all hang?
Yeah, I dressed up for you to do, Dwyane, because you're always decked out.
I'm chilling.
And if I knew you were chilling, I would have come chilling too. I was like, Dwyane is always sharp. So I was like, I don't want to let him down on his pod, so I'm gonna, dress up a little bit. And now when I saw you walk in, I was like, I hope he's getting changed. That's the first thing.
No, we chilling.
No, I love it. Yeah, I should have worn my sweats too. But no, I mean, so I still don't drink. I didn't drink since that time. I still don't drink today. Okay. So no beer for me. But I'd say video games is massive. So as I said, FIFA and NBA.
So get together and y'all.
And I'm competitive. So I will.
Like headphones or?
No, with people in person. In person. So I love playing with my guys, and I'm the kind of person that wants to do all the trash talk and everything to go along with it. Like I still haven't lost that edge. I think for me, I absolutely I do genuinely love being outdoors, whether it's activities, sports, anything. Like I've been playing a lot of pickleball and tennis, like anything active I'm into. I love sport. Anything active I'm totally into. Like I said, I love movies. Like I love the fact that we live in LA and I couldn't find seats to watch Challenges this weekend when it came out, because it was just like, every theater is just full, and I love that. So I love movies. I really enjoy, to be honest, this is a funny one. I love Disney World.
Okay.
So people are always confused by this one, but I've drunk the Kool-Aid that it's the happiest place on earth. Like I love Disney World. So Disneyland, Disney World, Universal Studios, I love all of that, because to me, the imagination of walking in, I'm a big Harry Potter fan.
Okay.
And so is my younger sister. So for her 30th birthday, I took her to Universal Studios in Orlando. We spent like one day each at each park. And it was one of the best things I've ever done. I'm going to Orlando on Thursday, and I've got a bit of time off, and I was trying to find a friend to fly in just to go to Universal.
Really?
So yeah, I love entering anything that makes me feel transported. Anything that makes me feel like I'm I'm moving into a totally new space, a new world that was created from someone's imagination. And so I love anything and I like roller coasters a little bit too. So
I love that. I'm listening. I'm into the roller coasters. I'm the kind of roller coaster rider that when I get to the park, I'm scared of all the rides. Yeah. Every time it's like the first time, and I'm like, I'm not getting on nothing.
Yeah.
And then I get on that one ride, and now I'm ready. Like I'm in. I'm that guy. It. But I go to the park, but I'm not doing nothing.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be there with the kids. Next thing you know, I'm screaming. I'm out of control.
I love that. Yeah. No. And I think for me, I'm always I try as hard as I can through my work when I meet people to show 360 degrees of my personality, but it's hard, right? You see a clip on social media, you see a tiny little clip of the podcast, and then you have a perception of someone. And I think, again, like we were talking about earlier, you can have such a limited perception of someone in a 30-second clip, a 60-second clip. I'm always trying to share the most 360-degree, multifaceted version of who I am, because that's what I believe we all are. And I think the hardest thing I've had to do is give myself permission to be all of myself. But I found that that's what resonates, right? It's like what I realize is the world may not give me permission to be all of myself, but I have to give myself permission to be all of myself because I don't want to live just one-dimensionally for the rest of my life. Man. And by the way, I don't want to be around anyone who lives one-dimensionally. And so I'm constantly working on saying, how can I show up as my full self? Which is why I let you in on my first thought, which was like, why is Dwyane Wade not decked out today? Even I thought that, right? So I want to share that with people. So I have normal thoughts. Like I'm not sitting here only having enlightened thoughts all the time. And we've got to get rid of that identity for everyone because, first of all, that's completely inaccessible. It's improbable. And it's impossible for anyone to even try to get to that. So why don't we all just let that down? But I think it's hard when, like I said, I'm trying to be everyone's spiritual friend, but when everyone wants you to be their teacher, their guide, that's the challenge.
It's crazy that we hold people to a higher standard than we hold ourselves to. Right?
Yeah, that's deep.
We hold other people to a way higher standard than we hold ourselves to. I talk about this. I do another show called The Wind Down where it's just me and the guys. We kind of evergreen conversations. And I recently just said that exact same thing you said about I want to live a full life. And that's my goal. That's a part of my purpose is to live a full life. And understanding by living that full life, obviously each day ain't going to be peaches and cream, right? You're going to experience all of what life has to offer and to give you. But I'm here to live a full life. And, I think people, when they see you trying to live a full life, they're like, no, what you doing? Why are you trying to live? Hold on, I need you to do this, not what you're doing. So, I love that. I love, once again, that like-minded, ness. And we just spoke about this recently on the podcast about the full life.
I did have one question as far as the two of you, because you both come from different spaces. And obviously Dwyane's basketball player with all his trophies behind him and everything like that. But you see Jay and you have like your affinities for what he's done. But he sees you for what you've done. And so what is it like just you now in this space and more people like Dwyane are coming to you for all the things and you coming to someone else about things that are profound that you're trying to access? How's that exchange usually in the beginning and how does it develop into anything else more than that?
So
for both of you.
Yeah, what I feel for me, it's, do you want to go first, Dwyane?
No, go ahead, yes.
What I feel for me is that it's really fulfilling because if someone reaches out to me or connects with me, it's because they share a value. And so whether the value is purpose or meaning or fulfillment, and so that's what they want to build a relationship around. And I think that's a really beautiful thing because building a relationship around something as high a value as that is pretty rare in this world. So I really value it. I love it. It doesn't matter to me who it is. The fact that someone's saying to me that purpose is one of their top priorities in life and fulfillment, whether that comes from family or legacy, or like you were saying, you're advising a mom about her son, like wherever that comes from, to me, that's one of the most rewarding things in my life, that no one's reaching out to me for anything else because I don't have anything else to offer. And I'm okay with that. Like I'm at peace with the fact that that's all I have to offer. So if someone wants something else, they're not coming to me. And that's great. Like, it's very clear. Like this is what I'm offering.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, I have a lot of respect for anyone who's pushed themselves, challenged themselves, developed mindset, still carries themselves with a humility and a consciousness which feels real and authentic. And I gravitate towards that. I think for me, I get attracted to people who have achieved incredible things, but still are grounded. To me, that's the most attractive combination in a human being, because to me, it shows that they still believe they can learn. And it shows me that they believe that they've just simply walked in the footsteps of other greats. And that's how I feel. So again, we share a value. And then it starts from a place of mutual respect. And so it's evolved into great friendships. It's evolved into great professional endeavors with people. It's evolved into just connection of family. And my wife and I weren't born and raised in LA. We don't have family here. So for us, we found a lot of community through that as well. But it's been a beautiful experience where it's very clear what we stand for. So in one sense, it makes a really good, what's the right word? It's kind of like a really easy checking system for people, because some people go, oh yeah, Jay don't like drinking late at night, so I'm not going to reach out to him now, right? Whatever it is, it's just very clear. And I'm good with that. Like, I don't need to go to a party, or I just want to spend.
So you don't need the invite. You don't need, like, some people just need the invite, even though.
No, I want to be where I feel purposeful.
Okay.
Like I always say, someone said to me once, they were like, Jay, you always seem comfortable wherever you go. And I said, I feel comfortable because I know why I'm there. Going back to the why, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, if I know why I'm there, then I'm comfortable. But if I don't know why I'm there, then I probably shouldn't be there. And so I think for me, whether I am showing up to an event, or I am showing up to a party, or I am showing up to being here today, I feel like I'm clear on my why. Mm-hmm. And if I'm clear on it, then that's great. But if I'm not, then I won't go. Mm-hmm. And so then the invite doesn't solve it, because the invite is more of a moment for me to question whether I need to be there or not.
I should have went first. I shouldn't let him go first. I don't know why
no,
I set myself up on my own podcast. If I'm going to answer the question the way I think how I want to explain it. I think for me, in this space, right? Like when I was a kid, and you have a dream, your goal is you want to be the best, right? I wanted to play basketball, and I wanted to be the best, right? And to be the best, you have to win. And so I wanted trophies, I wanted rings, I wanted champagne baths, I wanted to feel that. And I'm so thankful that I've been able to feel that. But I think in the midst of that, if the feeling is so fleeting, it's really the moment, the day after the parade, and then it's kind of like, it's gone. And I've worked my entire life. I've lost sleep for this moment. So why someone like Jay, you look at where I am and I'm like, oh, I need what Jay has, is because I'm trying to find purpose. Mm. That I thought this was my purpose. I thought my purpose was to be a great athlete and to win, and what they tell you. And then you get out here and you're like, well, I did that. I have this, I have that. And I don't feel anything. Mm. And so I'm trying to find what my purpose is. And so when I see someone who is purpose driven, and they can teach me about purpose and even defining what purpose is and point me in a direction, I'm all in, because I feel like my journey now is to really live in purpose. I've lived and did everything I dreamed I wanted to do from the sport I lived in. And I was like, oh, wait, life still goes? It don't end right here? Like nothing else happens? And so that's kind of been my journey since I retired, it's been very intentional and very purposeful of the things I do, the places I show up, the people I have around me, because I'm trying to find, at the end of the day, what is my purpose on this earth? We all are here for a reason. And in my season that I'm here, I want to be purposeful. And so that's why you go out and you find people who you perceive as gurus and who you perceive are the best, because they can help clear it for you. They can move the trees out the way, and and they can clear it for you. And so that's a reason why someone like me reaches for someone like Jay.
Yeah. And I love one thing I wanted to add to that was, and I love reminding people that often when we get to that place where you've got everything you haven't, or you haven't got everything you wanted, we often feel like, oh, my life's been a waste, or everything up until now doesn't have purpose. And actually, it completely has purpose, because it's what led you to asking the question, what is my purpose? Or what do I want to focus on? And so nothing's a waste of time. No moment or career path is ever a wasted journey because it brought you to that exact point, similarly as mine did. And so I don't know how much you guys like movies or how much you watch them, but so have you seen the Liam Neeson movie Taken? Right?
Yes,
the old school, right? So Taken is a great example of what I mean by this. So he loses his daughter's attention and love because he's too busy being a security guy, right? Along those lines. But then it's those same skills that win his daughter back. And so in the same way as you developed all these skills and mindsets that led to all of this greatness, at one point it kind of feels, well, what was it all for? But it's going to be these same skills, the same mindsets, the same platform that's going to help you live your purpose and win your daughter back in the purpose sense.
Yeah.
And so it's like this really beautiful trade-off, like how we think it's like, oh, no, now I need a whole new set of skills and I need to hold it. I'm like, no. Actually, it's using those same skills that you've honed and just redirecting them this way.
I agree.
And all of a sudden, so much opens up, you know? So
I love that. You're right.
I love that. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes back to something recently we talked about on one of my podcasts, regret, right? We talked about regret, and we all have, our different versions and, places that we have regret at. But then you come back and you ask the question, well, would you change anything? And sometimes it's like, well, no, I wouldn't change it. And it's like, well, why do we regret it? If we're not willing to go back and now, if you could, change it. Because a lot of reasons why you won't change it is because you are where you are because of the sacrifices that was made to, allow that regret to creep in, because normally regret keeps in because you're not able to be something for others or someone that they need or that you want to be. And so you have regret. But regret is just reflection that's still stuck in pain. And so when you start shifting from that pain to purpose, then that regret turns into healthy reflection. So regret's just reflection still stuck in pain and stress and trauma and pressure. And when you rise out of it, like you said, you realize I'm here because of all of that. So, I agree with you. How do you handle highs versus lows? Like, would I be able to tell if you are at a high or you're at a low? Like, do you show it on your facial expression? Like,
I would say that the people who spend a lot of time with me and know me well, they would tell.
They could tell.
For sure. Like, I think in the past I used to see hiding it as a strength, and now I see hiding it as a weakness. Because I found that if I'm not willing to show the people that love me deeply that I'm human, then who will I show? And then that circle just gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Man.
And now you can't even show yourself that you're human. And that feels really lonely. And I don't want to feel lonely. And that's what I've realized, that the reason why a lot of people feel lonely is because we don't show our pain to the people that love us. And therefore we don't feel heard, seen, understood by those people. And that's what it means to feel lonely, because I never let you in. I never showed you that weakness. So whether it's my chief of staff on my team, who I'm really close to, and she's been with me for a long time, whether it's obviously my best friends from back at home, or whether it's my wife, who I've been with for 11 years now, like those people, whether it's professional or personal, they can see it. And I think if we spend more time together, you'd see it too, because I want you to see it.
Yeah.
And I want you to see it not because I'm trying to teach or make a point. I want you to see it because I think that's when we can truly say we're getting to know each other. And I think that, of course, I don't think everything's for everyone to see either. I think we live in a world today where vulnerability means somehow that you have to tell everyone everything and show everyone everything.
Right. Like, and you got to cry because
you have, and I think that's too extreme too. Like, so one extreme is I'm not going to show anyone anything. And the other extreme is I'm going to show everyone everything. Life is rarely lived well in either extreme. And so I'm going to show some people some things, and I'm going to show other people other things based on their role and their part in my life.
Yeah.
And the way I handle highs and lows, that was your question. So the way I've done that poorly in the past with lows is I've hidden it. And the way I've done it poorly in the past with highs is I just moved on to what's next. And I used to just move on. And I'm sure you've felt that way. I mean, you know, like, all right, next championship, next this, next ring.
That's what we all do, right?
Yeah,
there,
it's a success mindset. It's what it's built on. And I think for me in highs, what I realized was that was an opportunity not just to celebrate myself, but to celebrate every person who got me there. To take an opportunity to turn celebration into gratitude to each and every person that got me there. Whether it's family, coaches, mentors, teachers, guides. How could I use my success as an opportunity to celebrate others, not just celebrate myself? And I think now when a success happens, I usually sit down and write, who got me here? And I try and think about the in-between people. Sometimes there's even people that I know, like we connect, and I'm thinking, wait, how did me and Dwyane first connect? Like, who is that person?
Right.
Chances are you forgot that person.
Yeah.
I want to find that person and go and thank them, because we're sitting here today because someone thought it was a good idea for us to connect 2 years ago.
Right,
and maybe even before that. And I've forgotten who they are because maybe it was just an email to a team or someone else, like in between. But let me go find that in between person and thank them, because I got to have this wonderful exchange because of them, because someone had an idea long before I did. So that's how I try and handle my highs. I also try and handle my highs is, how does everything not have to be higher, bigger, better now? But how can it be deeper, more truthful, more meaningful now? Because I think as humans and as men, we can just want to climb the next big mountain. What's the bigger mountain? What's the biggest step? What's the next hill that we're going to climb? And then you just end up at the top of this hill and the view's a bit better, but you're still feeling lonely, disconnected, and now you feel like you can't relate to anyone. So I go, no, how can I actually go deeper into the valley, right? Maybe we don't need to climb the next mountain. Maybe we need to walk downwards and inwards. And so I try and change the journey from being constantly outwards. And I think that comes from taking risks. It comes from pivoting. I think what you're doing with media and entertainment is a perfect example of that, right? You could continue in your career path and maybe you become a coach, or maybe, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great too. And maybe you will one day. But the fact that you've decided to pivot, that shows that there's a part of you that's searching for something else.
Something else, for sure.
And that's a beautiful thing. And then with my lows, I think my biggest thing that has helped me with my lows is to recognize that I get a lot of 1% experiences in life. And the universal rule and law of balance means I also have to get the 1% experiences of the lows.
Facts.
And I can't change that law because I'm not God, I'm not the universe, and I'm not that powerful. And so I get a lot of special, beautiful, wonderful experiences in life that life has given to me. I can accept them greatly, but I also have to allow the balance to exist of the 1% of the things I don't want to experience.
How do you cut it off? Right? Like if you get to a place where a low is looking you in the face, and you're now giving in to that low, how do you stop it? How do you cut it off? How do you use the practice?
Yes.
Right? In the midst of being there.
Yeah. I would say that for me, I have to focus on how I feel about what's happening. And a lot of the time, we're worried about what our loved one thinks about what's happening, or what everyone else is thinking about what's happening. So texting our friend and checking what they think about what's going on in our life. We're texting a family member and asking what they think is going on. And to me, I have to shut down that noise to be like, well, what do I think about what's going on? Why do I think this is happening? Why do I think I'm going through this? And that can be a scary thing because it's so much easier to be comforted by everyone.
Right.
But for me personally, I find if I'm comforted by everyone, then I don't know what's going on inside here. And so to me, I find sitting in that discomfort and listening and being present and reflecting is so powerful for me because I get to hear my own voice. And I find that most of my stress comes from not listening to my voice, but everyone else's noise. And so that's step one. I think step two for me is, now that I've understood my voice, I want to share that with the people that I love and trust, not in order to get their validation or clarity or agreement, because I think that's what we often do. We seek that. It's actually for a chance for me to learn how to explain it in a way that feels authentic to me. So now let me explain my struggle. Let me explain my pain, not so that they go, oh, I fully understand you, but in a way that I feel I've really understood myself. And then the third and final step is something that's been said for years by Covey, who I love, who talked about what you can change and you can't change. I think for me, I make a long list of everything I can control, everything I can change. And then I have to tolerate the things I can't change.
Yeah, buddy.
Right? Like a tree can move in the direction of the sun, but it can't change the climate that it lives in. But it can choose to move in the direction of the sun. It can choose to deepen its roots and spread out wide and get more nutrients, but it can't choose whether it snows or rains today. And so to me, some things have to be tolerated and some things have to be transformed. And I get really clear on both of those because most of my stress comes from things I'm tolerating that I should be transforming, or things that I'm trying to transform that actually need me to tolerate them. And so that's where the balance is lost.
Yeah, I cannot wait to listen back to this podcast. I'm going to learn so many different things. Go ahead, Bob.
I did have a question as far as both you guys being fathers.
I'm not yet.
No?
Not yet. No, not yet. But yeah, sorry, man.
Husbands.
Yeah, husbands for sure. Yeah.
What is it like when you came out of, and obviously you're married as well, Dwyane, but it's like, what is it like now trying to be all these things for everyone else, but also be that person for your mate every day and trying to keep that balance? Because your life is about balancing. How do you do that?
That's a great question. I think it's a question my wife would want to know the answer. Yeah, like, how do you do that? I'll go first on this one.
Yeah, go on.
It is a great question because I think it's a lot of times where you do a poor job of it. I do a poor job of it. Then there's times where I'm giving everything I feel like I need to it. But I definitely feel that a poor job is done often because, and I say this to say, when I retired, right, one of the things that I did immediately right away was I just decided to like get into therapy. And the reason I decided to get into therapy because I didn't want to dump all the things and all the emotions and feelings that I used to, be able to express on the court. I didn't want to dump them on the ones closest to me because that's normally where it goes. In that same token, you're trying to be all for everyone, kids, mother, father, the world. And in the same breath, you forget the person right next to you and giving them and feeding them, what they need. And so sometimes it takes a little snap back for me. Sometimes it takes my wife to be like, and then sometimes, it's about the group around you, it's the people around you as well, that is not pulling you away, that's also helping you and understand and can see at the same time, he hasn't been home, he hasn't had time, leave him alone, he needs to put that in. And so to answer, I would say I've done a poor job at times, a lot of times, and I think at other times obviously I've done an incredible job. But it's something that no one teaches you. No one taught me that I needed to be all these things for myself and for my kids and for this and for that and for that. And it's this feeling of I want to be perfect in all. I want to be perfect in all of them for everyone, but I'm only giving 20% over here, 20% over here, 20% over here. So sometimes I feel like I need a body double, right? Sometimes I feel like I need more. And I think that more comes from, like you said, it don't come from just you because you get dried up. That more comes from something else, something bigger. And so I think that's when I'm probably my best self, when I'm able to tap into something bigger. When I'm in my meditation, when I'm on my workouts, like when I'm on this structure, when I'm home for a month and I can schedule everything and structure my life and do all that, I'm giving it all. But when I'm not and I'm on the road and I'm gone, I do a terrible job, I'm sure, of giving more, to my wife, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a beautiful answer. Yeah, I was thinking, as I was listening to you, I fully agree with everything you're saying. And I feel like I've been very lucky to marry someone very tolerant, very patient, very accepting of who I am. And I think one thing we need to remember is that we think if someone loves us, they should just understand us. And I actually think if you love someone, you should help them understand you, right? So we think if someone loves us, they should just get us. But if I love them, I should be helping them understand me. And so for me, the times have been my best is when I've actually had the courage to communicate. Hey, this week I'm really stressed out. If I'm a little checked out, it's not you, it's just me dealing with some stuff. I'm sorry I said that yesterday, I just reflected on it and I just walked out of something and I shouldn't have dealt with it that way. When I can communicate why it happened, what happened, for what reason it happened, because I know it was in me. When I can actually take some time to get that, and sometimes I won't because I don't have the time. So some things I realize like 3 months later and I'm like, oh God, man, I said that thing 3 months ago, and now it's too late and now I don't want to bring it back up because then there'll be another.
Right.
But it's like the more I can give myself that space to ask myself that question. Like I remember my wife once said to me, she said, I've just had a really hard day. And my response was, tell me about it. I've just had a really hard month.
Oh.
Right? And so I was taking her. I was taking her moment of vulnerability and making it about me.
You.
But why did I do that? Because I had not communicated that I was having a hard month. If I had told her that, I would have let her have her moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have already had mine. But because I didn't have the courage to express that I was having a tough time, I had to take her moment and make it about me. And so I find that I'm at my weakest when I'm not effectively sharing how I feel, why I feel that way, why I acted that way, because I'm making it either about her or I'm making it about something else. And I feel I'm my most powerful when I can honestly say to her, this is why I am this way. This is what I'm going through. And therefore, just give me some space, right? Be aware of where I'm at. So I still make mistakes about this all the time. Like this is not like a solved thing, and I find it's when I'm not giving myself the time and space.
I feel like Jay is like a mirror. like he says so many things that I'm looking inside of this mirror and I'm like, oh dang, I got some work to do.
Same.
As we get to the end, Jay, one question I had was about spiritual awakening. I think I've heard this from so many people. My mom, who's had her own journey, I think she's felt what spiritual awakening is, and that moment it taps on your shoulder. Can you explain to me what is spiritual awakening and how do you identify it if it's something that you receive?
So in order to understand what a spiritual awakening is, we have to understand what materially sleeping is, right? If you think about the term spiritually awakened, the opposite is materially asleep. A materially asleep person is focused on that which is temporary, that which is ephemeral, that which is fleeting and passing, how you describe some things.
Mm-hmm.
A spiritually awakened person is focused on that which is ever existing, eternal, blissful, that is ever expanding, not ever shrinking. And so to me, a spiritually awakened state is likened to the experience of waking up from a dream. When you're in a dream state, everything feels real. Whether someone's chasing you, whether someone broke into your house, whether you're about to fall off the edge of a cliff, everything feels real. And then when you wake up, you can actually remember that and realize it wasn't real. And now you can actually look at reality. You're in your bedroom. There's the window outside. There's the sun. And you start kind of finding your bearings again. And then you take action in the real world. And so spiritual awakening is like waking up from a dream state.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, if we're not spiritually awakened, we're living in a dream state where everything around us feels real. And it feels like it matters. It feels fleeting. But the truth is, a dream is temporary. It's not real because it doesn't last. And so when you wake up from a dream state, you can actually look at reality. And so to me, spiritual awakening is simply that feeling of, and I'm giving another movie reference because I love movies. You guys have seen Inception?
Mm-hmm.
So Inception is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I love the concept of how in Inception, they get stuck deep in a dream within a dream within a dream. So imagine how many dream states we're stuck into. So spiritual awakening is like, oh, I broke one dream state.
Right.
Or I broke another dream state. Okay, now we got the real kick and woke up from the deepest dream state. And so spiritual awakening is also not a one-time thing. It's a consistent, layered process because we're constantly waking up from dreams. And when I say dreams, I don't mean dreams in the sense of what do you want to achieve. I mean dreams in the sense of where are you sleeping in your life and existing in something that isn't real. And I think we've all had that experience where you thought something was real, but then something happened to your family member and you were like, no, that wasn't real. This is real, right? It's like if anyone, God forbid, gets a phone call that they don't want to get, it's like all of a sudden everything that feels real and stuff that wasn't real. And so I think we've all experienced that. And that's why I like sharing that as what spiritual awakening is, because I think we'll be able to notice that. Oh, the things I used to value, I don't value those anymore. Oh, the things I used to think were important, I don't think are important anymore. The things that I used to chase, I don't chase anymore. That is spiritual awakening because I'm being directed to wake up out of the dream. So I hope that resonates. It makes sense. Yeah.
No, it does. I've been on your podcast and I'm going to have to come back on your podcast. Come back in person. Talked about this.
Especially after this conversation.
Yeah, we got to come back. Let's keep this going. We'll keep doing this. It's so much is being, it's being learned. So I thank you for being candid and open to it. How I end the podcast always is the title of it, the why. And you've done so much to this point. Even reading your book, just even understanding from, how early in your life when you decided, to, take this turn and go into, being a monk and coming out of that after 3 years and, becoming this, sensation, YouTube and meditation and all the things that you've accomplished to this point. So as you sit here today and you think about once you leave here, what you want to accomplish going forward, what is your why in that? What is your why going forward of the things that you want to be to others and, be to yourself?
Yeah. My why has always been the same as it has since the beginning. And I feel it's still the same today. The shape looks different. The vehicles look different, but the why at the root is the same. And it's, I just really want to help give people access to the ancient wisdom of the world that has either been lost, left behind, feels inaccessible or irrelevant, but find a way to share it in the most engaging, entertaining, and simple way so that people can actually live it and feel the benefit in their lives. I believe that there are timeless tools and habits and practices that if anyone in the modern world today would take up, that they would experience the shift. And I can say this because I don't have confidence in myself. I have confidence in these tools. They've lasted the test of time. Meditation's old. Stillness is old. Being in nature's old. Like these things have always been accessible, but if we learn how to do them in a engaging, entertaining, elevating way, our lives will become happier, healthier, and more healed. So my why is, how do I use the skills and the gifts that I've been given in order to help the world become more happier, healthier, and more healed? I can't do what you do. I can't do what so many other people do. And those people can't do what other people do. And I think for me, I live in joy knowing that I've just found my little place of what I'm meant to do. And I hope that my purpose can be to help other people find their purpose. Because if everyone just did what they were meant to do in their own way, we'd respect each other more, we'd appreciate each other more, we'd see greatness in others and not feel envious, but feel excited about it. And if we all knew our space and place, then we'd have an amazing impact. We'd be better parents, we'd be better partners, we'd be better people if everyone knew what their purpose was. And so that's what I'm dedicated to.
Man, last time I seen you, we were both on Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my team as we were walking out, and I was like, did y'all feel his presence when he walked in the room? It was like everything just got quiet. It was like I felt like I was floating in a sense. It was like you have this way, this touch, this energy, this spirit And so I thought, I was like, man, I like that guy. But then someone said, do you know he has a tattoo of a fist and a microphone? And I said, oh, really? Like the Source magazine?
Yeah.
And I was like, I really like this guy.
It's actually ironic because my favorite rapper is Eminem.
Okay.
But then Benzino owns Source. But I got the Source logo tattooed on my neck because I loved hip hop growing up. Like that was my life.
And you went for the neck. You was
and
like,
I went for the neck because I was told that the neck, I don't know if this is true anymore because I didn't go as far as I wanted to, but my whole idea when I was growing up was I was going to have my whole upper body tatted. I don't.
Okay.
But I was told that the neck was the hardest place because it hurts the most. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start there.
Okay.
And if I can do that, then I'll be able to do the rest.
Okay.
And so that was the theory behind it. But I never got very far. So I don't know. But yeah, man. Yeah, I loved rap and hip hop growing up. It's my favorite thing.
I love it. Well, Jay, man.
That's what I do. I go to concerts. Now when you said, I like to go to concerts.
Vibes.
Yeah.
But do you sing all the lyrics? Like when you're at the concert, do you lose your voice and just go hoarse?
I have to admit, we did go to the 50 Cent concert last year.
Yeah.
And I knew every word.
Yeah.
I still knew every word.
I like going to concerts where I know the lyrics.
Yeah,
now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Honored. Thanks for spending this time.
Man.
Thanks for driving through traffic to get here. Everybody on the Y, everybody please thank Jay Shetty for coming on and giving us a moment. We appreciate you, Jay.